They won't tell you this, but the moment you start growing, you stop being useful to the people who depended on your silence. That's why they call it change. But it's not change, it's liberation. There comes a moment in every human life when the world becomes too small for the person you are becoming. A moment when the room you once fit into perfectly starts to feel tight around your shoulders. When the conversations that once excited you begin to sound like echoes, and the people you used to run toward no longer feel like home. Growth isn't comfortable, transformation isn't gentle, and evolution is never easy, but nothing in this world is more painful than shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. Nothing hurts more than pretending you're the same person you were last year just to keep relationships that stopped growing with you. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't owe anyone your silence. And you certainly don't owe anyone an apology for choosing a life that makes sense to your soul. People will say you've changed as if it's an insult, but if you didn't change, you'd still be trapped in versions of yourself that died long ago. You'd still be living inside the fears that once controlled you. You'd still be bending your truth to fit inside someone else's expectations. Growth means you stop faking who you are. Growth means you stop giving discounts on your worth. Growth means you finally recognize that your time, your energy, your peace, and your dreams are not up for negotiation. When you rise, people will talk. When you choose yourself, people will judge. When you set boundaries, people will call you difficult. Let them talk, let them misunderstand you. Let them stay stuck if that's what they choose. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Their fear of your potential is not your burden. And their refusal to grow is not your prison. You don't lose people when you grow. You simply reveal who was never meant to grow with you. The ones who truly love you won't ask you to dim your fire so they can shine brighter. They won't punish you for choosing progress. They won't guilt-trip you for outgrowing the version of you that made them feel secure. Real love celebrates your evolution. Real love pushes you higher. Real love doesn't clip your wings when you're finally ready to fly. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not the entire story. But you tried to make every character stay forever, forgetting that some were only written into your life to teach you something, to guide you somewhere, or to prepare you for someone far better. Letting go isn't betrayal, it's self-respect. Walking away isn't cruelty, it's clarity. And choosing peace over chaos is not selfishness, it's survival. Life has a strange way of removing people who can't go where you're going. There are doors only you can walk through. There are dreams only you can carry. There is a future waiting for the strongest, most courageous version of you, not the watered-down version that tries to please everyone. Every time you try to keep people who drain you, break you, belittle you, or hold you back, you are betraying your own future. And the truth is, your future has already suffered enough. You owe your past self for surviving. You owe your present self for fighting, and you owe your future self the chance to thrive. Never apologize for outgrowing people who refuse to grow with you. Never apologize for raising your standards after realizing how much you were settling for. Never apologize for protecting your peace, for choosing your healing, for prioritizing your dreams, or for refusing to be walked on. The world will happily take advantage of a soft, selfless heart. It will pull you in every direction until you forget you were born for something extraordinary. But life begins the moment you decide you are no longer available for anything that diminishes you. There will be nights when you question yourself, when loneliness creeps in, when silence becomes loud, and when you wonder if letting go was the right choice. Growth can feel like abandonment, healing can feel like breaking, but stand firm, trust the process. The loneliness you feel is simply the space being cleared for people who resonate with the future you, not the past you. You're not losing people, you're losing weight, emotional weight, mental weight, spiritual weight, and when that weight is gone, you rise higher than you ever imagined. Some people only liked you when you were tired, because tired people don't ask for more. Some only liked you when you were broken, because broken people are easier to control. Some liked you when you were lost, because lost people don't challenge anything. But the moment you start healing, the moment you start loving yourself, the moment you start figuring out who you truly are, you become a threat to every relationship built on your insecurity. That is why outgrowing people feels so heavy. You are not just losing them, you are losing versions of yourself that needed them. You are stepping into a new identity, and anything that belongs to the old you cannot follow. Forgive yourself for staying too long in places that didn't honor you. Forgive yourself for loving people who couldn't love you in return. Forgive yourself for every time you ignored your intuition because you were afraid of being alone. The truth is, you were never losing people. You were slowly returning to yourself. And the most powerful homecoming in life is when you finally reconnect with the person you were meant to be before the world convinced you otherwise. You don't owe apologies for changing, but you do owe yourself the courage to continue. Keep walking, keep evolving, keep choosing the life that feels right, even if it confuses everyone around you. One day they'll understand. One day they'll see why you had to break the patterns that were breaking you. One day they'll realize you were not trying to be better than them. You were trying to be better than who you used to be, and if they never understand, let it be. You were not born to stay small for someone else's comfort. You were born to rise. There comes a time when your heart starts whispering the truth your mind has been avoiding, and that truth is simple. You deserve more than the life you once settled for. You deserve conversations that don't drain you, relationships that don't belittle you, and environments that don't suffocate your potential. But the moment you choose that more, the moment you raise your standards, the moment you stop showing up in places that keep you small, people will take it personally. They will call you distant, arrogant, selfish, or difficult. Not because you changed into someone worse, but because you stopped being the version of you that made their life convenient. People rarely hate your growth. They just hate the mirror your growth holds up to their stagnation. The truth is, most people don't want you to grow if it means they have to grow too. They liked you better when you were predictable, when you asked for nothing, when you accepted everything, when you tolerated disrespect in the name of loyalty, when you silenced your dreams so theirs could be louder. But the moment you wake up to your worth, you disrupt the arrangement, you break the pattern. You challenge the unspoken agreement that said you must always be the one who bends. You stop bending, and suddenly you are a problem. But hear this clearly, you are not a problem. You are a person who finally learned how to protect yourself, and people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always label your boundaries as disrespect. Never apologize for choosing yourself after years of abandoning yourself. Never apologize for saying no to what exhausts your soul. Never apologize for letting people face the consequences of their behavior. If someone is hurt because you walked away from their chaos, it means they depended on your silence to survive. That is not love. That is manipulation dressed as affection. That is comfort disguised as connection. And walking away from that kind of attachment is not cruelty, it is liberation. Growth requires you to leave certain rooms, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because the air in those rooms is no longer meant for your lungs. There are places you simply outgrow. There are energies you can no longer tolerate. There are friendships you can no longer maintain with a clear conscience. It doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. Conscious of what drains you, conscious of what inspires you, conscious of how much you had been shrinking to fit inside relationships that didn't deserve you. When you grow, you stop running toward people who only meet you halfway. You stop begging for love, attention, validation, or understanding. You stop trying to explain your worth to those who are committed to misunderstanding it, and yes, it hurts. Growth will always hurt when you have a good heart, because you don't just walk away from people. You walk away from memories, from hopes, from versions of yourself that believed things could change. You don't just lose them, you lose the future you once imagined with them. But that pain is not punishment, it is cleansing. It is clearing space in your life so the right people, the right opportunities, The right chapters can finally enter without fighting through the noise of what no longer serves you. You will have moments when you miss the people you outgrew, and that doesn't make you weak. Missing someone is human. Returning to someone who hurts you is self-betrayal. The person you miss is not the person they are today, but the person you hoped they could be. You grieve the potential, not the reality. And sometimes you mourn the version of yourself who tolerated too much, forgave too quickly, trusted too deeply, and stayed too long. That grief is part of the transformation. It teaches you where your boundaries must be planted, how your heart must be protected, and why your soul must be prioritized. Never apologize for becoming someone who refuses to settle. People will say you changed when you stop accepting the treatment they shouldn't have given you in the first place. People will say you think you're better when you stop allowing yourself to be used, drained, or disrespected. But listen carefully. Your evolution is not an insult. Your healing is not a threat. Your confidence is not an attack. If your growth offends someone, it means your new standards expose their lack of effort. Every time you level up, you shed people who were attached to your past and intimidated by your future. Something about success makes old relationships uncomfortable. Something about confidence makes insecure people restless. Something about healing makes toxic people angry. When you start choosing peace instead of drama, you stop being entertaining to people who feed on dysfunction. When you start choosing self-respect, you stop being accessible to people who only valued your availability, not your heart. When you start choosing your goals, you stop being a part of conversations that revolve around gossip, negativity, and excuses. It is not your job to carry people who don't want to walk. It is not your responsibility to motivate people who have no desire to grow. You cannot force someone to evolve just because you love them. You cannot drag people into a future they don't believe in. Trying to save people who refuse to save themselves will drown you long before it teaches them how to swim. Your purpose is not to be a lifeline for those who pull you under. Your purpose is to rise so high that you become a lighthouse for those who are ready to find their way. There will be moments when it feels like you're walking alone, but solitude is not punishment, it is preparation. Solitude is where you discover your strength, hear your intuition, and reconnect with your soul. Solitude teaches you that peace is not found in people but in alignment, and once you experience peace, chaos will never feel like home again. You will start recognizing who truly deserves access to you. You will stop entertaining half-efforts, half-love, half-loyalty, and half-grown people. You will become a person whose presence requires maturity, honesty, and effort. Remember this, outgrowing people doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest, honest about your needs, honest about your limits, honest about what your future requires. You cannot stay loyal to old versions of yourself just because others are comfortable with them. You cannot keep shrinking yourself to keep relationships alive. If someone needs you to be less so they can love you more, it is not love. It is dependency. And you are not responsible for maintaining anyone's comfort at the expense of your own soul. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to demand better. You are allowed to walk away from anything that doesn't honor your growth. Never apologize for outgrowing people who stopped growing long before you did. Your future is calling, and it will not wait for the people who refuse to move. There is a version of you that is still learning how to let go without feeling guilty, still learning how to walk away without apologizing, still learning that your heart can be soft and strong at the same time. You grew up believing that loyalty meant staying, even when staying was destroying you. You were taught that love means sacrificing your needs, your dreams, your boundaries, your voice. But real loyalty is not measured by how much pain you can endure. Real love is not proven by how silent you become. You were not born to carry relationships that keep collapsing on top of you. Yet for so long, you stayed in places that drained you because leaving felt like betrayal. But the truth is, The real betrayal was abandoning yourself every time you chose their comfort over your well-being. There are people who love the insecure version of you because that version didn't ask for anything. That version tolerated disrespect, forgave betrayals without accountability, and accepted crumbs while giving loyalty. When you start to heal, when you start to value yourself, when you start to see your worth clearly, you become unrecognizable to people who benefited from your brokenness. They say you've changed, but what they mean is you're no longer easy to manipulate. You're no longer available for their chaos. You're no longer willing to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. And instead of growing with you, they choose to criticize the progress they were too afraid to make themselves. Growth exposes relationships that were held together by your willingness to bend. You start seeing things clearly. Who checked on you only when they needed something. Who clapped for you but secretly feared your success. Who loved the idea of you but never tried to understand the real you. You start realizing how many people were in your life not because of who you are, but because of what you provided. Your comfort, your support, your emotional labor, your presence. And the moment you pull back, they reveal their true intentions. It hurts, but it is necessary. Sometimes the only way to see someone's real heart is to stop giving them access to yours. Never apologize for seeing people clearly. Never apologize for finally acknowledging what your intuition tried to warn you about for years. You didn't outgrow them overnight. You simply stopped pretending. You stopped ignoring the signs. You stopped abandoning yourself. And once you reclaim your self-worth, there is no going back to the version of yourself that accepted disrespect disguised as love. There is a reason your soul feels lighter after letting certain people go. Not because you didn't love them, but because you stopped carrying the weight of their expectations. You stopped carrying the responsibility for their happiness. You stopped carrying a relationship that required you to lose yourself in order to keep it alive. Growth is not just about adding things to your life. It's about removing everything that dims your spirit. It's about subtracting the noise so you can hear your truth. It's about releasing the people who trivialized your pain, mocked your dreams, or never met you halfway. People will call you selfish when you start prioritizing your peace. They will call you distant when you stop responding to drama. They will call you cold when you refuse to be guilt, tripped back into cycles that once controlled you. But remember, the people who call you selfish are often the ones who benefited the most from your selflessness. The people who call you distant are the ones who took your presence for granted, and the ones who call you cold are the ones who only loved you when it was convenient for them. You are not responsible for their discomfort. Your healing will always threaten people who have not healed themselves. The universe will send you signs every time you try to shrink to fit places that no longer align with your future. You'll feel restless, unsettled, uninspired. You'll feel like something inside you is pushing you forward while something around you is trying to hold you back. That internal tension is evidence of growth. It's proof that your soul is evolving, even if your surroundings haven't caught up yet. When you outgrow a relationship, the connection feels forced. When you outgrow an environment, the energy feels suffocating. When you outgrow a mindset, the old habits feel heavy. This is not a sign to stay, it is a sign to rise. And rising will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you familiarity. It will cost you certain friendships, connections, and identities you once clung to. But what you gain will be far greater than what you lose. You gain clarity. You gain self-respect. You gain alignment with your purpose. You gain the ability to attract people who see you, hear you, value you, and meet you where you are. You gain the freedom to grow without feeling like you're betraying anyone just by becoming better. Not everyone has the courage to grow. Not everyone is willing to confront their own flaws, fears, and patterns. Not everyone is brave enough to heal the wounds they've carried for years. Some people don't want to grow. They want to stay in the familiar, even if the familiar is destroying them. And they will resent you for choosing the path they refuse to walk. That resentment is not your burden. Their unwillingness to evolve is not your responsibility. You are not abandoning them. You are honoring yourself. And one day, those who judged you for growing will wish they had followed your example. One day, they'll understand why you walked away. One day, your absence will teach them what your presence never could. Growth is not just about leaving people behind. It's about elevating yourself so deeply that those who truly love you will rise to meet you, and those who never valued your journey will naturally fade away. Remember this truth: you are allowed to change, you are allowed to evolve, you are allowed to become someone your past self would be proud of. Never apologize for outgrowing people who never intended to grow with you. You are not meant to stay trapped in chapters that were written for an old version of you. Your life is calling you forward. Your future is waiting. And you do not need anyone's permission to answer that call. There comes a point in your life when the fear of staying the same finally becomes greater than the fear of changing. That moment is sacred. That moment is the birth of the real you, the you who is no longer willing to live small, bend endlessly, or apologize for wanting more from life. You start realizing that you were never meant to remain the version of yourself that made others comfortable. You were meant to evolve, to expand, to rise, even if rising means standing alone for a while. You were meant to grow beyond the limitations people placed on you, beyond the expectations they projected, beyond the roles you were forced to play just to be accepted. When you outgrow people, you begin returning to yourself, and returning to yourself is the greatest homecoming you will ever experience. The truth is, the people who belong in your future won't be intimidated by your growth. They will be inspired by it. They won't shrink away when you rise. They will grow with you. They won't guilt-trip you for wanting more. They will celebrate your ambition. They won't ask you to choose between your dreams and your relationships. They will stand beside you as you chase what sets your soul on fire. The right people will never demand that you dim your light just so they can feel brighter. They will never ask you to quiet your voice so theirs can be louder. They will never make you feel guilty for prioritizing peace, purpose, healing, or self-worth. The ones who truly love you won't fear your evolution. They will honor it. But before those people enter your life, you must go through a season of shedding. Shedding expectations, shedding fear, shedding guilt. Shedding every version of yourself that lived for approval instead of authenticity. It's not easy to release identities you've worn for years. It's not easy to walk away from people you once imagined forever with. It's not easy to let go of friendships that felt like family or relationships that felt like home. But sometimes home is not where you stay, it's where you learn. And some relationships were meant to teach you how to love yourself, not how to lose yourself. Outgrowing people doesn't make you cold. It makes you courageous. It takes courage to walk away from what once felt familiar. It takes courage to choose healing over history. It takes courage to accept that some people cannot go where you're going, no matter how deeply you care for them. It takes courage to resist the temptation of going back just because back feels comfortable. But comfort is not the same as growth. Comfort is not the same as alignment. Comfort is not the same as peace. Staying small to make others feel safe is not compassion. It is self-abandonment, and you deserve a life that allows you to breathe, evolve, and rise without fear. There will be moments when you question your growth, especially when loneliness wraps itself around you. You may wonder if choosing yourself was a mistake, if keeping your boundaries was too harsh, if letting go was too final. But loneliness is not a sign that you made the wrong decision. Loneliness is the quiet space where your new life begins to take shape. Loneliness is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Loneliness is the soil where new confidence grows. And soon you will look back and realize that the loneliness you feared was actually the freedom you needed. Every time you let someone go who doesn't value your growth, you are choosing alignment over attachment. You are choosing evolution over stagnation. You are choosing truth over comfort. And that choice, though painful, is the foundation of your future. The people who leave your life were never meant to stay for the final chapters. If their presence could have helped you rise, they would still be standing beside you. Their eggs, it was not your failure, it was your liberation. Their absence is not a loss, it is a clearing. Their departure is not the end, it is the beginning of a better alignment, a healthier connection, a stronger version of you. And as you continue to grow, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing people. You stop worrying about who stays and who leaves. You stop begging for love and start embodying it. You stop searching for validation in others and start finding it within yourself. You begin to attract relationships rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. You begin to attract peace instead of chaos, support instead of competition, clarity instead of confusion. You begin to understand that the right people do not need to be convinced. They choose you willingly, consistently, wholeheartedly. Never apologize for rising above the limitations others placed on you. Never apologize for refusing to be who you were in order to make someone else comfortable. Never apologize for letting your light shine after years of hiding in the shadows. Your growth is not a weapon, it is a blessing. Your healing is not a threat, it is a triumph. Your transformation is not abandonment, it is alignment with the life you were meant to live. And when you look back years from now, you will realize that letting go of the people you outgrew was not the end of your story. It was the turning point. It was the moment you stopped living for approval and started living for purpose. It was the moment you stopped settling for the familiar and started choosing the extraordinary. It was the moment you realized that the people who walked away were never taking pieces of you with them. They were only returning the space you needed to grow. Stand tall in your growth. Stand firm in your evolution. Stand proud of the person you are becoming. You don't owe a single apology for outgrowing people who chose comfort over courage, excuses over effort, and stagnation over transformation. You are walking into a future that requires strength, intention, clarity, and an open heart, and the right people, the ones meant to journey with you, will meet you there. Never apologize for outgrowing people. Your life is expanding, your soul is awakening, your purpose is calling, and this time you are walking forward without guilt, without fear, and without apology.